Well, folks, welcome to another episode of the Coffee Roaster Warm-Up Sessions podcast. Thank you so much for joining us once again, and we're pumped to be here. It's going to be a really tasty conversation. Yeah, my name is Mark Gutrovsky. I'm here with Sergey Gutrovsky. Sergey always laughs at this because we never introduce our names, but I'm like, man, new guests are listening. You never know who's going to listen, so might as well give them some names. So while Sergey pours some batching and keeps you guys entertained, I'm going to get my hat because my hair just looks like a rat's nest this evening. So I'll be right back.
Man, I'm really looking forward to this brew because I am tired. Man, oh, you're leaving the house. Man, there goes the door. Man, well. Oh, man. One thing about this pour, I'm pouring in a completely different cup. It's a Created Co cup because I've been doing a lot of latte art. And this cup was in the office, but this specific cup with the coffee and this like nice little tasty lighting set up in the office reminds me of Jonathan Gagne's cover for the book. You actually took photos of that. Yeah, the physics book. Like this view right here. Like I think the color of the coffee and this cup and the lighting.
It's true.
Yeah, it's a good old cover. Good. That's one Patreon I'm super proud that I was from day one.
Are you still Patreon?
No.
Sorry,
Jonathan.
I've
cut out all my Patreons.
Until you find. Oh, okay, fair enough.
Yeah, I don't. I used to support good old buddy boy Lance. I've kind of dropped that one. Dropped Kyle's. I need to throw some cash their way. They deserve it.
Dude, well, folks, speaking of throwing cash, look at this new baseball cap. No, this isn't a baseball cap. This is a trusty. The meter trucker.
You're kind of beating it down. Been wearing it a lot.
No, I'm not. That's the thing. I'm not wearing it a lot. It just sits in my car, which is the worst place.
That's the worst for a hat.
Yeah. So I just did the wrong thing. I need to take better care of my hats. Maybe I'll just need to buy one from us again. Okay.
Oh man. All right. This is awful. I told you.
What'd you tell me?
I needed to go finer on this.
You think so?
I think so. Or is it over-extracted?
I don't think it's neither.
No,
actually, it needs to go finer.
It needs to go finer.
It's under-extracted for sure.
Under-extracted.
It's a kind of a gross sour.
Yeah, sharp and sour.
Yeah. Hey, can you go grab a LaCroix for me from the fridge?
Oh, yeah.
I'll probably need to cleanse my palate on this one. A little dehydrated. You can grab yourself one too if you want. Can use some stemma.
Lime.
Yeah.
I can't talk. I can't speak. It's going to be a tough one.
Serge, give us a rundown. What's this coffee? I'll tell you this. I know this is a really disappointing brew, which I'm bummed about. But on pour over, it was much better. My brews and your brews, from what you've said. What are you tasting on it? Wait, first tell us what is this coffee?
Yeah, this is a coffee from the island of Lombok in the village of Sanaro. And produced by our buddy Taylor. If y'all have been following the Mirror journey, y'all are aware that we have invested in a coffee farm, small little coffee farm. Not really something to boast about, but we're super stoked on the journey that's been happening. We were able to build a couple of greenhouses for some Robusta coffees. And
I'm pumped about that.
It's just for the village.
That was a fun project.
It was a good project for the village, but we also helped Taylor get some moisture meters, kind of the general tools to help processing. Mm-hmm. And I think Taylor nailed it, hit it out of the park with this coffee. There's a few reasons this coffee should not taste good. And that's simply it's very low elevation.
Hey, this mic is just bothering me, so I'm just going to lower this.
Oh, okay.
Beautiful. Go for it.
Oh, man.
Sorry. I was like, what is this, amateur hour?
Yeah, it's pointing up.
Did we just start a podcast yesterday? No.
But yeah, it was like even Taylor, when we were talking about the coffee, he was like, dude, I don't want to overhype this coffee. It actually... I think this is one of the first harvests that he's ever done of this coffee. And it didn't score high. It was I think the highest score in it was at 83.8. But it's a anaerobic multi-washed, or what's the It's washed a couple of times, so it's not a natural, but it's got some of those complex anaerobic washed flavors that I really enjoy. I think anaerobic washed may be one of my favorite processing methods right now.
You know, I'm same here. I think after our Colombia that we have right now, the Java from Elias and Shady, that really, I was like, because I was for a long time like just throwing all anaerobic coffees out the window, and I'm like, oh, okay, that's not the issue. There's something else that's the issue that could be fixed. That can actually produce an outstanding cup, like incredible. So,
I mean, I think like sipping this right now, like what I am still blown away by this coffee, being an Indonesian, low elevation, and just Taylor killing it, and it's just juicy. It's still got good acidity. And we didn't have time to dial in this coffee. It was one batch. Let's see what happens.
Yeah, we had literally 6 pounds, 5?
Yeah, 6 pounds. And,
6 pounds?
Yeah, that's it.
We've never roasted a coffee at this low of elevation with this kind of processing from this origin. Like the odds were literally stacked up against us.
It's fine. Taylor brewed it. He brewed it in Indonesia because with his water there. True. And he was saying like, absolutely like blown away. It was so tasty. Like we both picked up dry fruit, a little bit of berry on it, just a little on the a hint on the back end, but very nice sweetness. The sweetness you don't expect to get from a low elevation coffee and an Arabica, especially where they've been predominantly growing a Robusta coffee. So it's just a win, big win. And the coffee is rare. I think Taylor only harvested, I don't know if it's 20 pounds or 20 kilos. Like for the local village for his cafe that he runs and operates there. Like that was it. Like this coffee never got exported apart from Taylor bringing it in a sack to the United States and shipping it to us from Florida. Yeah. I mean, it's a gem. It's rare. It's like a gem lot.
Yeah. Just not quite up to score. Yeah. But no, I will say, you know, when you, this was fun. You know, to not just to roast, dial in a 5 pound batch of a coffee we've never done before, giving it a whirl, and then the roast actually ended up working out. I don't know how that worked. Yeah, probably would have went a little darker. That's the only thing. That's the only thing. But I was also scared to go too dark, so that's why we like dropped it. We're like just uncertain. It was like, of course, panic in the moment of roasting of this 5 pounds of this different coffee, and so this was an exciting project, both not because of our history with Taylor in Indonesia and how we've invested into these villages, but I think this was exciting for me also is that we also got to roast this, and then we got to brew this, and then we got to send it right back to Taylor,
to Indonesia,
and then overall to Indonesia, and then for Taylor to drink it and be like, oh my gosh, this is really much better than I was expecting. That whole full circle is like so good. Just, and that has that is more of just like an emotional, I think, and mental thing for me.
100%.
Where I'm like, this brings me so much. This probably brings me as much joy as it would be to get a geisha and just knock it out of the park. There's just something intriguing there. But I think also the fact that, when you told me, hey, like this is just an 83 coffee, I was like, I was expecting something really bad.
Yeah.
However, when we roasted it and when I brewed it for the first time, I drank it. It was such an easy drinker. Mm-hmm. It was way more complex than I thought. The first thing I told you was like dried fruit as well. Yeah. Has nice acidity. And I was like, wait a second, like this is an 83? Mm-hmm. For all you listeners right now, like think back to the last time you tasted an 83. Mm-hmm. Most of us probably listening to this podcast, I'm assuming, so forgive me if I'm wrong, but most of us listening to this podcast have probably never tasted an 83 coffee.
Yeah.
And that's shocking.
Yeah. Like, apart from maybe blenders, who knows?
Sure. Yeah. Sure. Potentially. But of course, most of the people listening to this podcast, I think, are more, probably not. Maybe not.
Yeah.
Maybe I spoke too soon. But even then, like if you get like an Onyx Coffee Lab blend, those are probably not always 83s.
No.
Yeah. And so what shocked me was that it was much better than I was expecting. And maybe the 83 score is just too low for it, potentially. But
at least it's not inflated. I think it's worse when you get scores that are like an 88. And
right.
it
Somebody
like
said,
85.
oh, this is an 85, 86, But this just brought a lot of context to my grading scale. Because I don't drink coffees very often in that range. And so for me to think, okay, this is an 83 scored by a Q grader, and then I'm drinking these 86s, and then we get coffees from coffee importers that say, hey, this coffee is 87, sometimes 88, sometimes these importers are saying 89 and stuff like that. And so this helped bring some kind of context. I'm like, wait up, if this is an 83, it's hard to say that I would, we would be jazzed about this and releasing in, all this stuff. But at the same time, like, this changes how I see 85s.
Yeah.
Because now my perception of 85, I'm like, you have to be much better.
Much better. Yeah.
And that set the bar high for an 83, so to speak.
Yeah. 100%. Yeah. I'd take this 83 and I'd be happy with it. So, yep. Fun little journey.
Yeah. I mean, in contrast with this episode, a freaking drinking in 96. Like, holy crap, folks.
That's pretty wild. That's a big...
Who of you listening first drank in 83, but have enjoyed in 96?
96.
Not inflated. I don't want to talk about coffee review. The coffee review, there's like a website you can send.
90 plus,
Like, they're called Coffee Review. Their scores are ridiculously inflated. Like, you send them any coffee, they'll put a 90 on there. It's insane. Sorry if you're listening to this, but this was a freaking 96 at Proud Mary. Just to give a little introduction, this coffee is a Finca Hartman in Panama. It's a geisha, natural processed. They called it the Black Jaguar. And scored at a 96, first place best of Panama, roasted by Proud Mary, coming in at a whopping $2,000 a pound. Green. Holy crap.
Yep.
Green. Let alone with some loss, that number goes up very quickly. With some dial-in, one brew dial-in, the coffee just went up $20 a pound.
Yeah, exactly. Yeah.
It's
insane. I remember hearing Nolan talk about this coffee on the Map It Forward podcast.
I enjoyed that episode. Actually, before you go on, I'll say, hey, if you want to know more about this coffee or Proud Mary or Nolan. Or actually just a really powerful conversation about life, about business, about family, about everything. It's Lisa Farr, Map It Forward podcast with Nolan from Proud Mary. Give it a listen. But
during that episode is when he kind of dropped that conversation about getting the BOP coffee and purchase it, because I don't think, correct me if I'm wrong, they did not bid on this auction. They bought it from someone who won the auction.
Oh, okay.
Is that correct?
I don't know. I don't know.
All right. Well, fact check me, folks. I may be wrong, but I remember in that conversation that he brought up the coffee, the price of it, and the possibility of like a pound of it going to Portland and a pound going to Austin and something like maybe like a pound in Melbourne or something. Low quantity. That's the point. Insanely low quantity. And that's when I texted you and said, have you heard about this? This is insane. This is coming. The best, supposedly the best coffee in the world historically to this day right now is going to be in Portland at Proud Mary. And that's when I was like, we have to try this. Like, how do we do this? No matter what, like, this is, no matter what happens, whether this coffee is going to be roasted next level or roasted awful, this is a once in a lifetime opportunity. Like, that was the point to do that. And then my second thought was the intrigue of like the cost, because I think Nolan threw out at like a number of something like, $120 to $150 a cup or something like that.
A pour over.
Yeah, on a pour over.
Like, it's a 10-ounce pour over. Like an 8-ounce pour over. It's a small pour over. Like, the dose is like 15 grams.
Oh, that makes sense. Yeah. So, like, with all that combined, the intrigue was high.
Through the roof.
Yeah. And I was like, what does this taste like? What's the value? Just a lot of questions came up. But time came, and I honestly missed out. Didn't get to go.
Yes.
Tough call, but had to make it.
You gotta do what you gotta do.
Yeah. But you went.
Yes.
Dude, your journey was crazy because you were in Guatemala.
Crazy journey.
Yeah.
Dude, this podcast is gonna be like an hour long. It was crazy. Like, we're like about to get on the plane from Guatemala, and then all of a sudden we hear flights are canceled, flights are rescheduled.
no.
And I'm like, there's no way I'm making it to the BOP. Brew, I missed out because of some flight, because I was supposed to fly in 9 p.m. the night before.
Mm-hmm.
Anyways, long story short, we figured out during a layover that the guy who told us that our flights were canceled completely just spooked us, like false alarm. Oh, it was frustrating. But anyways, got back, flew into Vancouver at 8 p.m., 9 p.m. Was about to drive out after making a quick pit stop at home. Literally, I'm like 20 minutes out, and I'm like, hell no. I'm so freaking exhausted.
Yeah.
And it's no way I'm going to drive into Portland at 2 a.m.
Yeah.
Literally went back, took a little nap, woke up, and then ripped down to Portland. Yeah. And that was crazy. I'm like, I'll save the story for the vlog, because a vlog totally is coming.
Yeah,
I filmed it all because it's
cool.
because it's so special.
Yeah.
You know, and I think when you ask yourself, like, okay, when you envision a $150 cup of coffee, what do you even think about?
Yeah.
When you think about a 96 coffee, what comes to mind? Actually, I had no idea what to think. Like, you can't. You don't even have a frame of reference. You just know, it's better than the last 90 you've had.
Yeah.
And so regardless, it's a special coffee. Last time I had a really expensive cup of coffee was I think it was either from Manhattan, a Narrative, or the last memorable one was a George Howell, $15 for a pour over.
Yep.
And it was incredible.
Yeah.
It tasted like super buttery. Like, I remember the texture of it just tasted like almost like butter. Mm-hmm. Like, it was crazy. Yeah. But anyways, this was like an experience similar. And so I literally drove down there, picked up the last brew and Proud Mary.
Yeah.
And yeah.
Do we go into a taste review right now, or do we like?
Let's do a taste review right now, but only if the folks listening will still go watch the vlog, because the vlog is worth.
Don't give away too much. Like, save it for the vlog. We've kind of talked about it, but we didn't talk. Even you and I didn't really talk about it in detail. I'm just curious, like, what? Like, I think my biggest question is, when you're going into a cafe and you're willing to drop $150 a cup, like, do you want it to like taste just crazy? Like, what kind of flavors are you expecting or wanting? Or the other question is, are your flavors and expectations set by Proud Mary presenting the coffee to you, and you're kind of open-minded and you're just expecting to receive whatever they're willing to offer?
Yeah, I think I walked into this with more of like on receiving whatever they offer. Yeah. I try to, like, once again, like, I'm trying to think about like, what should I even expect? Because all my previous cups of coffee, like the couple visits that we've made together to Proud Mary, have been mind-blowing. And those are pour overs that are like $12-13. Mm-hmm. And they were mind-blowing. They were astounding coffees. And I'll think about times 10. Yeah. And you're like, what do you even think?
Yeah.
And so I just walked in knowing, hey, Proud Mary is one of my favorite roasters out there. I know it's gonna be exceptional. I also had some fears because I know what it's like to have 5 pounds of a coffee. And listen, the Indonesia that we're drinking, it didn't cost us almost anything. Yeah. But at $2,000 a pound, listen, you're roasting. The stakes are high, so to speak. Yeah. And not only that, it could be an excellent roast, but what happens when the brew gets, like, the amount of times I've used the same grind size and it's clogged? Yeah. Like, that happens. And you can't foresee that. Right. You pour something wrong, your flow rate's a little, and then boom. And so I just walked in there with saying, hey, I'm doing this. And we've talked about this also on the podcast a lot. And it just keeps like reaffirming me, and I think there's something on this.
Mm-hmm.
I'm like, this is an experience.
Right.
I'm paying $150 not just for the taste of the coffee, but everything in general.
Mm-hmm.
From the moment that I walk into the cafe, to the greeting, to the brew, to the smells, the dry smells, the coffee smells, to the chatter with the baristas, to everything.
Yeah.
And so I was like, I'm just here to receive.
Yeah. Yeah, and I think for us, those who work in the industry, who are familiar with the industry, there is a frame of reference that, man, that $150 a cup isn't simply all going, to Proud Mary. There's a cost and there's an expense to be serving this kind of coffee. So we kind of get that. The funny thing is, I had to check in on some headlines with that. Because thinking about that, I'm like, man, what were the general headlines? And like, the headlines were kind of interesting. So there's a good old, like, it made it on like business news.
And I think, listen, a part of this, I will say, I think this is important to know, is that part of wanting to experience this is because I actually haven't even heard of $150 pour over.
Yes, there's
like
intrigue.
It's literally
100%.
Unheard of that exists in the States.
Yeah.
Like, so you won't be able to get it after this. Like, there won't be a cafe that's going to be doing this. And so there was a bit of that, and I think that's important to think about
in context.
So
because these headlines, like it says, Texas and Oregon cafes reportedly sell out of $150 per cup coffee. That was fast. $150 cups of coffee sell out in one day at Portland Coffee Shop. It was even quicker than one day. It was hours?
Half a day.
Yeah, it was like insanely quick. So I feel like a lot of the news headlines, and of course business news, anything that's going to be taught, that kind of frame of reference from business or economy is going to be talking about money. But I feel like the emphasis obviously was on the price tag.
Yes.
Which also can be a little bit misleading if you're just headline reading. If you don't know what's going on there, you don't understand like the C market, you don't understand the bigger picture economics of coffee as a commodity and as specialty. So there's a lot at question there. And I think one of the biggest thoughts that ran through my mind after knowing that you got the coffee, after knowing that there's a very big price tag, and then reading the headlines, I thought, will this automatically make people think, man, all of this excessive price tags on these big coffees, even like the $18 pour overs, $20, cafes Proud Mary's just cashing in on this, just making a lot of money. And I think that can also be like this general misleading misconception when you see a price tag. But we all know, like, especially for us, we know that that's not the case. That when you have cafes, when you have roasteries, when these big coffee companies are presenting something as beautiful and with that experience, that there is a big and a major expense to bring that in. Considering that coffee itself was an auction coffee. The price wasn't just set by the Hartman family. Yeah. And it wasn't just like, hey, we want you to buy this coffee at $2,000. There was an auction for it. So that means the value came up with that coffee based on the demand. So someone was willing to be like, hey, this coffee deserves this price. So the price tag was not even set by the producer or the family. It was set by the demand.
You know, that's such a good point, because it shifts all of a sudden from, I mean, maybe not fully, maybe not entirely,
no.
But it shifts from thinking like, oh, this is just a coffee that was, is just a scam.
Right.
Yep. And just somebody decided to sell it for an ungodly amount of money.
Exactly.
But because at some point in an auction, if you don't want to bid on it, if you don't think it's worth it, you don't have to buy it. Like, nobody's forcing you to. Yeah. And I get it. There's a bit of status in there. Like, oh, I want to serve at $1,000 a pound coffee at my cafe. Like, I get that. But honestly, from a business perspective, if that's the only reason you're bidding on something at that price point, those are some high risks.
Right.
because you won't bid that on the 83 coffee.
Right. 100%.
Because the risk there, the ROI is negative.
Yeah, exactly.
And so that just tells you that there are people who thought it was valuable enough and it scored a 96. That's insane.
Yeah.
And so there is more value to this than just it being a bean. And I think people it's especially in the world of headline reading, you miss out on the context, on the details. Like a lot of these people are probably not coffee people who don't really understand the craft of how hard it is to roast a coffee like that, how hard it is to brew a coffee, how hard it is to create such an experience, let alone being the person, like the risk that you're taking on is like, is massive.
Yeah.
So,
and also taking the risk on the fact that will we even sell out of these doses?
Totally.
Like, what if no one shows up? And I think
there is a
chance for that. I'm not, I don't think Proud Mary has to worry about that. They're pretty renowned, but that also put that in context. The fact that Proud Mary can boldly approach that coffee and say, we can present this coffee. Like that's a big deal. That's something, in my opinion, should be honored. And not to hold like one company above the others. Like every company has its, there's problems in everything. I'm not saying like, I don't know Nolan personally. I think he's a great guy from what I know about him, but I don't know him. I don't know Proud Mary that well. I just visit the cafe. But like there is some kind of like honor to that prestige. Not this honor where it kind of elevates and separates, but it allows this presentation to happen, allows that experience to happen that maybe someone smaller, like you and I, wouldn't approach that coffee.
No.
Like we wouldn't. Like we just don't. That's not possible, So to have someone that's willing and to then create that accessibility for you, out of all people, for you to be able to experience that coffee. And again, like we want to make sure that everyone listening understands the context here. Like we're not saying that this coffee is for everyone. Like it's not a good idea for everyone to buy a $150 cup of coffee. And it's not made like that, like openly wide for everyone. No. But there is that experience context, and to be able to present that well, I think deserves the honor.
100%. And so I think a part of the other reason is why I think I love not only the fact that there were articles written, there was getting some press, some heat, both good and bad, I think this just goes to show that both in the coffee industry and outside the coffee industry, I think people still can't grasp what exceptional craftsmanship in coffee means. Like we've gotten used to 5-star Michelin, restaurants. Sure, you walk in and everything from probably the freaking water that you drink to literally the dessert that you order, which I don't know, who knows what could be like a Hershey's Kisses on a plate and it costs $3,000, and we're used to that. We totally, most of us can kind of comprehend what a $500 bottle of wine is. Like all these things, and nobody can still comprehend that coffee can be this expensive. And I think there's a couple of reasons behind that. Well, to start off with, I think this is why stuff like this is good. Is because I think it broadens people's minds and expectations and gives them some kind of intrigue. Like, ooh, what is that? It's kind of like, the fad about like the what is it? Kopi Luwak, the cat, the monkey poop coffee. Coffee. Like that. It's like people hear that and they're like, whoa, what? And then they find something new about it, and then they realize it's super expensive coffee and stuff like that. But everybody knows about it. And to me, I'm like, oh, okay, so people are learning. And so the stuff like this, people are just learning that, hey, there's actually this weird side of coffee that you have, the classic Starbucks drive-thrus and everything. And then you're like, oh, whoa, there's something different. And so, but also on the other hand, I think it just goes to show how, as a coffee industry, we've done such a bad job at educating people and sharing about the craftsmanship, the story, the narrative, the journey and the process of coffee. Like we've just done a bad job to it. And the only thing that people have to cling on is what is supported by big, massive corporations with a lot of money and who have pushed a certain kind of narrative to sell what they want to sell, which unfortunately is not, in some ways not the healthiest for the industry or not quite the best.
Yeah.
And they've just had that opportunity because, well, they have all the resources in the world. And unfortunately, we've just done a bad job.
Yeah, for sure. I mean, in sneaker culture, like, there's so many. One, there's a lot of collabs and a lot of like crazy stuff that's coming out. But it seems to be like, at least in I feel like in my circle, like everyone knows that like sneakers can cost anywhere from, like, for example, the new Tiffany Co. sneakers, Air Force Ones. Air Force One is a very basic shoe, but it was collabed with another company, and all of a sudden everyone knows like the shoe deserves to be like 4x the price of what a regular Air Force One is. And that's normal. Like, you know what I mean? There's a kind of a bigger knowledge and bigger understanding. It's not for everyone, but it's normal. And I feel like even though sneaker culture is still a niche, but that niche is kind of more educated than the giant of coffee, second highest traded commodity in the world. And we are still misunderstanding like concepts that not all coffee is equal and the same.
Yeah.
So there is a lack of like, I feel like every single time we talk about this, I think of Lisa Farr saying, again, not to bring her up, but she has some important information to say. And she always says, like, when you say coffee, like, what does that even mean? Right?
Yeah.
And like, we're talking about green coffee, we're talking about roasted coffee, we're talking about a cup of coffee, we're talking about instant coffee, and it's all lumped under the brand coffee. And there's not enough distinction, not enough conversation, not enough just general like information out there to help people categorize things. Like, hey, this is just my cup of Joe, like just to get some caffeine so I feel alert. And then this is $150 cup. They're the same thing, but they're also not even close to the same thing. So, so I think this does create some intrigue, creates room for conversation, and brings up the question, like, like why? Like, why are these prices the way they are, the way they're set? And one of the things that I absolutely love that Proud Mary did is, like, before the release, they had that video on Instagram. I mean, if you're listening to the pod this far, you should probably go watch the video. It's very good. It's about a 3-minute video about Finca Hartman, and it's just excellent education. Like, it tells you how much time, this is like a legacy farm. It's past, it's generational. Like, how much was invested into bringing this beautiful cup of coffee, how they take care of the land. That's like, you kind of like chuckled out. He's like, hey, did you know it's a bird? Like it's a bird preserve. All about like birds. I'm a bird watcher. I freaking love birds. Like, and to know that these folks are not just like growing coffee with like high intention and a lot of like attention to detail and quality, but they're also like preserving the forest. They're preserving the animals. They're creating this eco-sustainable and eco-friendly place to see flourish, not just to make a ton of money. And I think like when that narrative shifts, I think it makes a very different experience in looking at a price tag like $150 and then being able to actually partake in that cup of coffee. So to me, that was super special. I was pretty hyped watching that video. And just to even see how Proud Mary rolled it out, like, I think it was like a week before, days before, to set the standard. And to me, it almost felt like they were removing the spotlight off of themselves. This wasn't about like them and serving this coffee. This was about Finca Hartman and all the hard work that they put in. So just
extraordinary. And oftentimes nowadays I don't know if I should even say this, but like it's become cool to just trash on excellence.
Yeah.
Like people, I feel like nowadays it's like everything that's really exceptional that is done to completely different level. It's like you get hate for that, and you get hate for, charging more for it because it took way more time and energy. And I know what it's like to build a business. It freaking sucks. And to be good at something, it freaking sucks. If it was easy to be LeBron James, LeBron James would have been a nobody.
Yeah.
Like there's a reason why we know the icons of history.
Yeah.
And literally everybody, either from people who changed culture, who changed history, who changed everything. Like, it's not that they just woke up when they did it. It's like a treacherous path. And I think stuff like this, like it's not like, the Hartman family just woke up one day and was able to pull this off. This is like generational. Like this is like, hey, my great-great-great-grandfather started this and worked on it and passed it on to his son so that he could work on it. And then I took the baton from there and moved it even further.
Yeah.
Listen, we're talking about, this wasn't a 10-year project. This was like a several decades project. Yeah. I think that deserves some award.
Yeah.
I think that deserves some kind of, I don't know, a special cost to it, because that's what it costs. It probably costs more energy wise and effort and time and everything than it did for that $150 coffee. Yeah. Because it's built on a history of learning of the process.
Yeah.
And I don't know.
I think everyone, I want to say, I know everyone is a blanket statement, but I want to say like everyone values excellence. We just do it in different areas in different ways. Not everyone will value the excellence in coffee or in the coffee industry, but that doesn't mean you won't value the excellence in, like, I don't know, comics or, baseball cards. Yes. Like everyone's or art, you know what I mean? Like everyone values excellence, and there is, I think, a sense of awe when you find something that is very unique, that was crafted with hard work, that was crafted with like this next level creativity that's out of this world. Like we all do that. And I think experiencing things like a cup of coffee or tasty food, at least for us, there is that like desire to experience that. And I think it's not a common thing that we do, like that we would drop $150 on a cup.
No.
Or even like a $20 pour over. Like that's not easy to do.
No.
But there is that like desire to experience someone else's hard work and someone else and actually like be like, I like me, like who, like wait, me, I get to experience your hard work. Your like there's honor in that. And like no matter how you process that and learn that, I would take that and I would think about that. Like, man, like there's a reason for that. There's a reason we love Ford versus Ferrari. Yeah. Like there's a reason like we love things that speak of that like drive, that excellence. Yeah. So,
and I think some final words as we wrap up this episode. And this is, I enjoyed this. I enjoyed reflecting on this, and I don't think I've gotten to process it this much, my experience. But, why did I just blanked on, what were you saying?
Excellence. Like, we all crave it.
Yeah. I think, not everybody should be buying $20 pour overs or $150 cups. And I'm not saying that at all as a way to boast or whatever, as if, I like, once again, like what you said, like I do this on a daily basis. But for me, it was like, hey, this is my career. Yeah. I'm planning to give the next decade of my life to this craft at the least. And if I do, I stuff like this, I want to experience. I want to know what's up ahead. Yeah. I want to know what what that's like. I want to know the boundaries of this craft and what people, the legends around me, what they're doing, and learn from them. And there's definitely a lot of honor in that.
Yeah.
And I think it's not for everyone. Listen, it's not for everyone. I think somebody who doesn't know coffee as much as maybe I do, or as much as, you know, some of us coffee enthusiasts listening to this, it would have been a waste. I'll tell you that. Everybody's like, hey, was it worth it? And I'm like, listen, I'll give you guys, this is what I thought about the coffee, because you guys were like, well, what'd you think? You know, I think the experience was 10 out of 10. The service from the baristas, 10 out of 10. I'll tell you, when she was brewing, the head barista at the time, when she was brewing the coffee, I was like, I hope you don't screw this up. I'd hate to be in your spot right now. And I'm like sitting there looming with my camera over. I'm like, oh, I was probably giving her so much pressure. Brew was pretty darn excellent. Like, there's some nitpicky things that I'd probably tweak about, but that's, shut up, Mark. You're being annoying. Excellent brew. The roast, I'm telling you, I don't know what they roasted on or how much at a time. Man, I don't know how you nailed that with like 4 or 5 pounds.
Yeah.
It was very tasty. Not vegetal, not roasty. Man, the natural processing on it. Chef's kiss. You guys know on the pod how much I don't like naturals. But wow. No fermentiness, no booziness. And it had a lot of complexity for a natural. It was extraordinary, I'll say, once again. And I think now, is the coffee itself worth $150 a cup? I don't know. I think, like all things, like what Lance said about, you know, the ode. Once you buy the ode, there's diminishing returns. I think that's the thing with everything. And same with cameras, same with cars, same with everything, where that last 10% is going to cost you 5x the price. And so could I have gotten just as good of a, well, maybe close to, like on a cup that costs maybe 25 or $50? I'd probably get close. It wouldn't be the same, but it'd be close. However, once again, it's not just about the flavor. Listen, it's about the experience. And if I could pay for that experience, I'm happy. And I was pretty stoked about it. Would I do it again? I would probably, but I probably wouldn't be able to do that like again this year. It'd probably be like once in a 5-year or, you know, but it was definitely something I'd recommend. Like, if you're a coffee enthusiast, if you get the chance to, and you can, highly recommend it.
There you have it, folks. That's the word on the street. It's worth it.
It still feels weird to think about that. I just got to experience that. That's insane. But folks, shout out to Proud Mary for delivering the goods, for being such good stewards of such a tasty bean. Go watch the vlog. I don't know when it's going to come out. I'm going to try to bust that out. Either it's going to go live this weekend, maybe, or next week. I want to be a little more intentional with the edit and stuff and bring some explanations to it. But keep your eyes peeled for that. And I don't know.
Dope. Wrap it.
All right, folks. As always, thank you so much for tuning in to an episode of the Coffee Roaster Warm-Up Sessions podcast. And as always, as we always say, reflect what's good.